So we'll get started here. Welcome, everyone. Today we are going to start the Enlightened Soil Webinar with just some introductions, and then we will bring in the Minnesota Soil Health Coalition folks that are with us today. Thanks, everybody, for being here. My name is Camille Newsom. I'm the Director of Grower Support for Ensoil. We got a bunch of folks from our team here, Jessica, Jennifer, Julia, Meredith, Yazzie, Stuart. Awesome to see so many people on today. So we'll start with a brief introduction about who we are, and then we'll jump into the discussion today. So we grow Ensoil algae. It's a liquid concentration of living microalgae cells. The specific species is called Chlorella vulgaris, and this is a freshwater microalgae. It exists in ecosystems all over the world. We have growers that are using this to activate soil biodiversity and functionality, to enhance stress adaptation, to improve crop production and boost nutrient cycling and uptake. And really at a bottom line, it's a soil health tool for improving return on investment and production. So we're OMRI listed, and we support growers with an educationally driven team. Our mission really aligns with that of the Minnesota Soil Health Coalition, and we've had a relationship with these folks for a bit now, being at many events. As Tucker Garrigan says, I'm not sure if he's with us here, but we're always pulling the rope in the same direction. So we're really grateful for our relationship with these folks, and hope that it continues. At the base, really our mission is to empower farmers and land stewards in the effective and profitable implementation of a regenerative agriculture system. So that's the rope, that's the direction. We got three folks from the coalition with us today. Mark Gutierrez is the executive director. Tom Cotter is a fourth generation farmer from southern Minnesota who's a part of the coalition. And Jolene Carlson has many hats, one of which is a hobby farmer, works with the Minnesota National Guard, has been on many boards. So these three folks are going to introduce themselves. I'm going to stop talking, and we're going to kind of get the show on the road here. So welcome, y'all. And Mark, take it away.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. Appreciate everybody joining today. A little bit about myself. I grew up out in New Mexico working on a farm, went to school for ag business and ag economics, and then worked for USDA for about 15 years in the statistics and the crop insurance branch before coming to the Minnesota Soil Health Coalition. And here's my contact info here. You can see that. Feel free to reach out to me at any time if I can be of service. And if you want to jump to the next slide, please. Here we go. So what is the coalition? Well, this is it. You're seeing it. We were founded in 2019 by about 100 farmers. And so we're a grassroots farmer-driven organization. We're managed by 7 board members, all farmers spread across Minnesota. And that's really what we are. We're a group of farmers, ag professionals, input suppliers, soil scientists, agronomists, and what I'll just call soil health enthusiasts, all working together to educate about the benefits of soil health and help farmers implement the practice. And we have lots of great partners. You can see in some of those photos, we were doing the ribbon cutting. We have the head of NRCS here in Minnesota helping us out with that. They're great partners. And I really think the highlight of the coalition is, as you can see here, some more faces. These are our mentors, or some of our mentors here. We have a mentor network, about 50 farmers who volunteer to help others and share their experience. And the mentor network is free, but I always try to remind people we are a member organization, and you can be part of this network for $25 a year. It gives you access to the mentor list, and if you're not a mentor but you want to talk to us, if you're not a member but you want to talk to somebody, you can always just reach out to me. Give me a call, email me, and I'll connect you with somebody similar to the operation that you're doing or who's knowledgeable about the questions you have. And the Mentor Network is a fantastic group of farmers who are all experienced soil health practitioners, successfully making it work on their farm, and we have them spread out all across the state. Next slide, please. So what do we really do when we're out and about? Well, we talk about the soil health principles. This is really the backbone, and the reason we like to talk about these is because we know that these principles work everywhere on every soil type, no matter the type of weather, all over the world, any farming operation. These principles are really the backbone, and if they're applied, with the first one being contacts within the context of your farm, you can improve your soil health, and that leads you to reduced inputs and increased profitability. And so we travel around the state, cover the principles here, I'll just say them: minimize disturbance, armor your soil, plant a living root, keep a living root, plant diversity, which is crucial, and integrate livestock. And next slide, please. So that's what we focus on when we're traveling around. We host 50 plus educational events a year. Again, these are the folks who are in our network who are attending these events. We conduct on-farm research, all farmer driven, derived by farmers and led by farmers. We educate youth, we educate our communities. And when we do that, we host these community events and we focus on teaching about how healthy soil translates to healthy food, healthy guts, and healthy humans. And we're really blessed to have great partners like InSoil here to help us fund our education and help us get the word out. Because it's really important to get in front of farmers and get in front of other folks and work together, like Tiger said, pull the rope in the same direction. And that's really what the coalition is about. So I just want to say thanks again for allowing us to be here. And we'll go ahead and turn it over to Tom.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me here. I got this up there. You guys can kind of read through that. I will tell you, when I started this back in '98, we were actually doing tiling, and that's how I got to see the difference in the ground with a cover crop on there, which at the time it really wasn't even a cover crop. It was just a green thing that I wasn't paying attention to because I was still in the mindset of a full tillage guy, me kind of destroying the land. But over time, we, kept learning from the things we were doing. And back then you didn't have anyone to talk to. So it used to be in the back 40, in the back 80, and then went to 200 acres and just kept on getting more and more. And next thing you know, it had to be out front and center for everyone to see. And that's, that peer pressure was, kind of hard, but I mean, it doesn't bother me, but you could definitely see it when everyone would say, no, that won't work. Agronomists would say it won't work. And lo and behold, these practices do work. And so you can see my family's there. I believe Brandon's online here with us right now. I really fell into organics. Never was really planning on doing organic ground. I'm a 40% now and 60% conventional, which is no-till, but working with cover crops and letting them do their job really just led me right into organic and then into no-till. And once I started putting those together and then putting livestock grazing in there, we used to have 500 feeder. Now it's 45 cow calf, and then all the grass finishers, and really utilizing that ground has kind of been our key. I know when I first got invited to go up towards Redwood Falls area and talk about this new Minnesota Soil Coalition, it was just the beginning. I was on another soil health team and wanted to get to a broader range, wanted to get to all of Minnesota. And we've really come along strong, from those first days of not knowing what we're doing and maybe taking a few lumps along the way, but kept learning. Just like in my soil health practice, we kept learning. The coalition really has grown into a pretty great entity. And of course, I'll talk about later, but they've really helped all of us. I know Dawn and Grant are on here too. Jolene, they've really helped us do a lot more events helping local farmers. The nice thing is it's, yes, my local farmers, but it's also farmers all around the state. So I guess you go next slide. You can see I typically run my cattle on every acre. I have 800 acres, kind of all one large chunk, and which is pretty lucky. Not everyone has that. But in springtime, I'm always grazing, calving on that. Next slide. And it doesn't matter if it's, that top left-hand corner, that's late summer. Spring in the bottom left-hand corner, fall on the right, and winter I bale graze just as much as anything too. So move on. This is typically how I plant, which is no-till on the conventional. Organic, we reduce tillage quite a bit, but I'm also zero chemical disruption. And this picture right here, oh, go back one, that picture right there is actually right on the edge of town. I'm 1 mile off. That was my field right up against many houses. So it's nice to have that. And those neighbors literally loved having me do this kind of stuff. Next slide. And here, back in 2015 or 16, we started learning about, when I first started doing covers, it's just a monocrop. And then we realized how much good diversity is doing. We learned how to get diversity into our cash crops more. So here's an interseeder I built, and we're really getting usually 5 species out there. And it's, legumes, red clover, annual ryegrass, maybe a kale for grazing, buckwheat. And it's really not about, growing the nitrogen. It's more about growing the diversity underground. Next slide. And of course, now I've gotten into a lot of, on the no-till side, reducing my glyphosate usage. So I'm just banding and then trying to in-row crimp. And that can also be in the organic side. That can be strip tilling into that, reducing my tillage on the organic side, and then coming back and in-row crimping. Next slide. And diversity in your cover crops, but also diversity in my cash crops has been huge. Right here is a picture of sunflowers and sweet corn together. This is organic, cannot be sprayed because it's organic. So you put the pollinators in there, and that really helps keep the insect pressure, the bad insect pressure off the sweet corn. Next slide. And of course, like I said, with the Minnesota Soil Coalition, it helps us educate other farmers. And that's been just a wonderful thing, because I know how it was being alone and not having help for many of those first years of doing this. So I really enjoy that. And it's fun to see that guy in the front with the blue hat, Kurt. He's the one that taught me that it's not future generations aren't the only ones getting excited about agriculture, but the older ones, future, past, present, they all are excited when they come to this way of doing stuff. I think that's it. Or next slide. I just threw this up there. Camille put this on for me just late this morning, but it really shows how I literally used to be the one on the left, and now that one on the right really does show exactly what my farm is like now. And did I ever envision that? No, but just following the practice and seeing what soil health did kind of brought me to that spot. So that should be it.
Thanks, Tom. So we'll hand it over to Jolene if you'd introduce yourself.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me here. This is great. And I, like Mark, so excited for this collaboration and love that we are all pulling the same rope. And I think it takes a tribe when you are talking about systems and how to really educate people on systems. So I love that we are a part of this tribe together. So yeah, my background does seem very complicated and kind of all over the place, but I always say that's just because I have always been a systems thinker, but we live in a linear world. And so I had to take a lot of linear paths to make sure that I could get to the point to help educate people how to connect the systems. But I've always been a Minnesota girl, and those of you that aren't from Minnesota are probably like, oh yeah, we hear that in her accent and Northern talk. I grew up in north central Minnesota on a small farm in the 80s. So it was very much the 80s typical farm where we had some animals, some crops, and people were just doing the best they could to get their farms to survive in a very difficult time. And we would kind of go through ebbs and flows where we would have successes and have to sell everything, have successes, sell everything, to the point when we got into the 90s and had to really stop farming. But I went to, my first career was as a high school science teacher. So I spent 20 years teaching high school science education with a master's in environmental natural sciences, because I've always gravitated towards the outdoors. Nature is my sanctuary. Nature is the best place to really try to understand connections and systems. And I also give credit to my parents, as well as complain a little bit, because they just literally kicked me out of the house every day, as they did with my siblings, and said, said, you need to go outside. And when we call the cows to come and eat, you can come back inside. So I would just spend days outside observing and being part of nature and just doing whatever I could to get through the days. But I appreciate that now because it really allowed me to be that observer that fueled my passion for the rest of my life, of understanding connections and really connecting with nature. I retired from teaching in 2018. When I taught, I had the opportunity to create some different curriculum. We created a food as medicine curriculum in some of my classes. We also did school gardens and then taking that garden harvest and making it into food and how to basically make food as well as food storage and ways to preserve food. And then I just kind of got to the point. I loved teaching, but I felt like I wasn't at the best leverage point in the system. So I went back to school for my master's in nutrition and functional medicine and really gathered, just like as we talk in the Soil Health Coalition, of soil kind of being at the foundation and the root of all the rest of the system when it comes to plants, animals, and people. That's what my nutrition degree is in. It's not understanding the signs and symptoms people have. Often we talk about disease, we talk about health as signs and symptoms, right? Like I feel blank, or I have this disease, or someone diagnosed me with this thing. And that's important information, but that thing is really just a sign or symptom or a effect of some sort of root cause of something else going on. And what I get to do is observe, just like I observe nature, observe people, listen to what they say, and then really understand the biochemistry of the body to be like, what is that root cause and how do we heal you from that to help with those signs and symptoms. And so I spent some years since 2018 doing clinical type of stuff, but my passion really lies in connecting all of these things together and showing people and helping people understand how they're related, how all of our systems are a system and they all have things in common in a shared root type of cause for things. When we talk about agriculture, it's the soil. When we talk about humans, it's the gut. And then I spent a lot of time with the Soil Health Coalition educating on how the soil and the gut are really mirror images of each other. However, the soil is doing and what's showing up in the soil as far as the microbiology is probably likely what we'll see in the human gut as well. And if those two things are kind of the root cause of everything else from that system, if you nurture those things, take care of them through soil health principles or through just nutritional principles, you'll find that a lot of those other things that we see and complain about, nutrient density or things not being able to grow or chronic illness, those things start to dissipate or get reduced. And so I've been fortunate with the Soil Health Coalition. They I always say I'm kind of the black sheep. They took a chance on me as a board member because I do have a hobby farm, but I am not wise on the technical skills of farming because my farm, the only tool that I really use are my hands and throwing seeds on the ground because I just have 70 acres with the intent of really just trying to heal the soil with diversity plants, prairie plants, and then I dabble in some herbal medicine. And so using plants to heal, plants as medicine, plants as food, and then really trying to figure out what is it that my soil, my land needs right now to kind of restore itself to health, and then observing and seeing what can I add to it or change to make sure that it's ideal, just like I would with a client or myself in nutrition. So I have some animals. I have some heritage pigs, kunis. We have some chickens. We have some turkeys. We have bees. And then we have a whole lot of plants and trees and shrubs and things like that. So that is my farming background. And then with the Soil Health Coalition, I felt and they allowed me to help be the person to make that connection between all the great practices and principles of soil health and how that relates to human health. And so I can just give you all a preview of some of the things I talk about, and then hopefully we'll have chances to collaborate further, or you can reach out to Mark and, figure out ways that we can talk more about any of these things if you're interested. One of the primary things I focus on is, the huge concern of chronic illness in the United States. which really, if you start thinking about root cause, goes back to gut dysfunction and then vitamin and mineral deficiencies. It's just the reality that most of us are deficient in more than one and likely many vitamins and minerals, and especially minerals. And all of you in this call probably know how relevant mineral health is to soil health. And so there's a huge connection there, that our minerals are a product of healthy soil, the healthy soil microbiome and the microbiology in the soil. And so I like to talk about and make that connection of taking those soil principles that Mark read out, the 6 principles, and then putting those in the context of gut health. And so that's primarily the education I do at a lot of our events, is relating each of the soil principles to basically how they mirror gut health, and then the actual human interventions through nutrition and lifestyle that you can do to improve those 6 principles of your gut. And you know, you can approach it either way. We as individuals can always work on our gut at our own choice and pace and rhythm and ability. But obviously, as all the farmers are doing all the great things for regenerative farming and improving the soil, it will also have the same effect down the road on human health and improve our guts that way as well. And so really focusing on that gut health, that soil health, has that compounded effect to our overall health in many, many ways. And that's how you know you're in a system, is when you can't track one straight line from one thing to the other, but doing one thing that's good for the soil and one thing that's good for your gut will affect everything else when it comes to plants, animals, people, and the environment. And that's what I try to really help educate people on and understand. Some other things that we talk about are things like lab testing. What are the vitamins and minerals that you need? How do you get them? What are the most common deficiencies? And so those are just things that I talk about. And then based on the feedback from coalition members, from farm visits, from people, we adapt our education to meet people where they're at, because that's the most important thing, is giving people education and tools, and then allowing people to make a decision that's best for them. But we know that every person wants and deserves to have that quality of life that they want, and what we really want to focus on is that is attainable for everyone, and you don't have to do crazy things. And the other big thing that I talk about, which is really, really strange, and especially in the agriculture world, is what is real food. We're so far removed from the basics of food that comes from nature, right? Without being manipulated, changed, processed, having things added to it via toxins, things like that. So the more that we connect with real food and what nature provides, obviously the better our bodies will be, and they'll respond to those nutrients and help us with our overall health. So those are the things I do at the Soil Health Coalition, and I love it, and I'm just grateful for it. And I'm again grateful for these partnerships. I'm so grateful for everybody in the Minnesota Soil Health Coalition. Mark leading the way and all the things that he does. Tom has the vision that I wish everybody has. Same with if Don and Grant are on this. There's so many farmers that are doing all the things, and they understand that this system really matters, and that is going to be the legacy that matters. In the future for future generations, and to get people excited again about farming and being in agriculture is huge. My other hat, just because it's so obvious, is I work full time for the Minnesota National Guard. I'm at work today, hence the uniform, and I'm their holistic health and fitness director. I've been in the Guard for 20 years as a medical officer, and the military is also now recognizing the importance of being holistically well and taking care of the whole person. And I was lucky enough to drive that systems change at this level. So that's the quick version of what I do. I know it's not a lot of detail, but we don't have the time for that. I just want to hopefully give you all some inspiration, motivation, just to know that, that we're here to help make connections. We're here to support, and we're excited about all this collaboration that we have.
Thank you, Jolene, and thank you all for being here. We have the rest of the time to just have a discussion. So I have some topics and questions to share with the group. And if anyone on board here would like to ask a question, just throw it in the chat. We'll have time throughout the next 30 minutes or so to get to those questions. Could be for everyone or just a single person. So let's start, and I'm going to move these guys along. let's just start briefly. If each of you would share, maybe we'll start with Mark. Why and how did each of you come to this soil health journey?
Yeah, thank you. Well, it's a great question. And it's, I was a lot like everybody else. Worked for USDA, grew up, with conventional farming practices. And I was a critic. I was a skeptic. And I worked for crop insurance at the time. And I remember going out to one of my first soil health field days. And Gabe Brown was there. And he talked a lot about soil health and about his operation. And I came back to the office and I thought, if a farmer that big can implement these practices, there must be something to it. And as I continued to work those challenges with crop insurance and soil health and help remove those barriers, I went to a lot of field days on farms in Minnesota where I got to see the practices in action. And I became a believer because I stood there and I saw infiltration happening on fields with reduced till and cover crops and standing water on conventional fields. That was just right there in my face. It was undeniable. I knew there was something to it. And when the coalition formed and advertised the position for the executive director, I knew it was the right place for me. And that's how I got here.
Thanks, Mark. What about you, Tom?
For me, a lot different. I think the first year we planted something was a dwarf Essex rapeseed, and I reluctantly did it because my dad wanted me to do it. So I fought him the whole way, and we saw the benefits. And then we started planting winter rye, and I literally got into a program right away that economically helped me as a young farmer. Got paid to plant this cover crop. I put this Gutierrez box on my disc, and I went out and I did tillage and planted the cover crop. And for me, as a 24-year-old, I was thinking, great, I'm getting my tillage paid for free. So economically is what first started. But then I honestly started viewing and watching what was happening. Lots of times people look at something and they think they know it all. The best thing is just to look, but don't think, and just see what's happening. And that's kind of what I did, especially since I was doing a lot of tiling under the ground. Thirdly is, not settling for the normal, because I was a full tillage guy. My dad was a full tillage guy, and it would have been so easy just to stay in that rut. But watching and, seeing what's really happening on the ground was huge. And of course, my wife always says, question everything, ask why. And I think that's what I really started doing as I went along on this process. And it works. It works. So that's enough for me. Jolene.
Yeah, that's it's similar for me too. I think that I've always joked that I never grew out of that toddler phase of asking why, and so I just have always been curious in nature. And I think I understood at a pretty young age, just being exposed to nature for so often and every day, just watching that. I had a respect and an intuitive kind of feeling that, like, okay, Mother Nature has this figured out, and that we're just kind of like trying to maybe figure out shortcuts and doing all these things. And I'm all about trying things, but then, we try and we tried, we're trying conventional agriculture, and now we're starting to see some of those long-term side effects from it, right? And it really kind of hits you in the face. And then it's like, well, you have to kind of rethink and then go back to observation and what Mother Nature is. So I think that I've always intuitively have felt that this has been kind of, where I would end up, but it took me a while to get there, because I would study this, study that, ask more questions, be more curious, go back to school, do some jobs, do all the things. And then I finally was able to make all those connections. And then I was just really passionate about sharing that with other people, because when you have that aha moment and just to understand like how it's connected and be able to see how this affects the greater picture and all, you're just excited to share that with as many people as possible. And the Soil Health Coalition just had all of that in place, and it just felt like a natural fit.
Yeah, the connections really, it seems like that's kind of at the heart of this discussion. I know on our team, hold on, just gonna mute. Okay. I know on our team, our company was founded by a cardiologist, and we're very focused on the connection between the food as medicine and the soil health, and then the community health, hence the network that we're working with these partners. And we have this webinar series, and we're just trying to build these bridges amongst different communities to help educate and help share knowledge. So I'm curious from y'all's perspective in the coalition, what are you all seeing as the connections between the soil health component, the human health component, and then this larger community health? And maybe Jolene, do you want to start on this one?
Yeah, I mean, and that's just it, is that there's a huge connection. I think just helping people understand how to make that connection is the hard part. I think that, I really do believe that we as humans haven't lost that intuition and knowing that this connection already exists between nature and soil and food and our bodies, and then the social part of it too, as well. Like, these are basic human needs, to be well nourished and to have a tribe and be societal and to work together and to collaborate. But in our linear world, we've lost those connections. And so I think that it's not hard, to make those connections. I think that the hard part is basically helping people remember that these connections exist. Because I do believe that in our deepest biology, whether it's a spiritual perspective or, in medicine, I sometimes say, like, really your gut microbiology is in charge of what you feel and think, and the connections. I mean, there's lots of things, right? But why does that exist? And I think that that's just, still ingrained in us. We just have to reconnect with it. And then when you do that, it's really easy to follow the path from soil to plant, to animal, to person, to community, to systems. And then it just, as with all systems, it becomes a cycle, right?
Definitely. Tom?
Well, I'd say, as farmers, as we get bigger, we tend to lose that connection. When it's a small acreage, you walk across that field a million times. When it's large acreage, you walk across it maybe 100 times. And so as you're walking, you don't get to see that connection. And I like to refer to as, being a caretaker as compared to a farmer. And humans' eyes, yes, we're farmers, but in God's eyes, we're caretakers. And when you put that caretaker label on yourself, you actually worry about that end product of what you're making. So as my soil's gotten better, my human health has gotten better. And of course, whenever you're a large farm, it's easy to spend that money on large corporations, and all of a sudden that money's leaving your community. When I'm doing rice, you can see sunflowers and sweet corn. I'm bringing community people out onto the farm. And Jolene talked about, we have this innate nature that we are in touch with nature. But even though the definition of nature has everything except for humans, and I think that's a mistake, because we are from nature. So I think it's very important to stay connected. And when you do these practices, people notice. I'm right on the edge of town, and I get a lot of people coming out to see. I'm sure Dawn and Gray do too. Jolene, I'd love to come to your place to see all that stuff that you're doing. And we really need to give these city people the option to come see it, because walking on Main Street, yeah, it's okay. You see things, but you're going to spend money. It's not beautiful. When you're out in nature, that's when you see beauty, and that's when you see you're happy. So, yeah, we can't turn a blind eye to our health. So.
And Tom, maybe just before we go to Mark, will you talk a little bit about how you think that's changed over the last few decades that you've been involved in your community with agriculture and this connection?
Well, of course, social media has helped. I can reach people that I never imagined, 25 years ago. And so that's been huge. I actually think COVID, I see a benefit from COVID, and that kind of showed people that we got to get back to this natural food system, or shorten that food chain supply up. And people have really come on strong since COVID started. And so I just hope it keeps on going. Of course, the internet helps us connect with literally everyone. So.
Thanks, Tom. And Mark, what about you? What are you seeing as the connections as it moves to the community level?
Yeah, well, as we started, thanks to Jolene and Tom, really kind of leading the pack on this, we started talking about soil health and human health and gut health and the connections and nutrient density. We know we have a nutrient density crisis, and it's really kind of amazing. The farmers I've talked to, using chemicals, not eating healthy, how many farmers don't have gardens themselves, and we've seen a shift, and farmers are now more interested in having gardens and reducing chemicals and educating their community about local food. And we're seeing more engagement and wanting to host these type of events where we invite the community and show them the difference between your conventional farming and regenerative farming and how beautiful it can be. Like Tom said, Tom has this amazing picture that I love, and I don't know that he has it up here today, but I've seen it many times. It's like a airplane view or drone view overlooking his farm and a neighbor's farm, and they're really the only two regenerative farmers right there in that area, and it's green, surrounded by blowing dirt, really. And it's so, I mean, you can really understand it in a big picture when you see that. And I just think it's amazing to see farmers talking about how they have their own health experiences. And we're actually just sent a video to Brandon. He'll probably be posting it soon, where Gabe made a video with a farmer out of South Dakota who had Crohn's disease and shifted his diet away from processed foods and started growing their own foods, storing it and eating healthier, and changed their entire diet and solved a lot of problems that he was having, and cancer issues going through the roof here in Minnesota. And we all know that it's tied together, and we're seeing, as more people learn about it, we're seeing a shift.
Great. Thanks, Mark.
Hey, Camille.
Yeah.
I could jump in and add a little bit more to this. The community aspect, it extends well beyond the Minnesota borders. We're obviously in South Carolina. It was a Texan and a North Carolinian who connected me with the Minnesota Soil Health Coalition, and I've got to spend some time at a number of their events. That's where we've gotten to meet these folks and seen it in action, right? So it's the common bond in terms of prioritizing life in the soil and understanding the consequences that come from that. That community extends pretty far and wide. I think we've all experienced this because we travel around and we see each other in the same places quite a bit. But I wanted to, the connection that the Minnesota soil health people have built with the groups, having seen it in person, they have a model that's really worth following. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to make sure that they were connected with you, Camille, and to be on this webinar. It's what they're doing is working. And Mark, what did you tell me? Did you guys cross 1,000 member threshold recently?
Yes, we did. We've crossed the 1,000 member threshold and have a lot of interest and engagement, and it's been going really well.
Yeah, and I know that extends into some of your neighboring states, and we have a partner a Minnesota partner in Profit Pro Ag, and we got to be up there with all you guys recently, and it's just those 2 days were just such a validation of the growth of what you guys are doing, and it's the momentum is piling up. So I just wanted to say a word for the community that you guys work on there locally with a focus in Minnesota ripples out, and we've been exposed to it all the way down here in South Carolina. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tucker.
Camille, I got one thing to say on that picture. We talk soil, human, community. It's so fun to see the food companies jumping in on this too. And this is 7 Sundays. They do a remarkable job on getting healthy food to people. And I'm just amazed at how small that company is, to how much I've seen it out there, people consuming it. So that helps us farmers a lot.
Tom, do you want to talk a little bit about this photo? And I'm going to move the conversation into outcomes. So like, what are some exciting outcomes of soil health on the farm, in the world of human health, in the community? And maybe let's start with you, Tom, in this photo.
Okay. How's outcomes? Well, right there, when I first got into soil health is economics. And this slide just proves that as your soil health keeps getting better and better, and it's not that you're going to get 4.6 times more nitrogen, but you can get up to that. with soil health. And so as my soil gets healthier, my outcome is I get more nutrients available. And of course, that's where, like in soil algae, that helps me too. Even though I have animals, I have everything I need on my farm to make it beautiful. What do I have to compare it to? Degraded soil. So do I truly know what healthy soil should look like? Because I'd have to go back 1,000 years ago to see what was like. So that's why I'm excited about the soil to help me still take that next step higher than what I think I'm at or want to be at. So outcomes, yeah, utilizing my land better. One of the best outcomes is now, instead of doing a cash crop and utilizing that ground for 3.5 months out of the year, now I'm utilizing it 10 to 11 months out of the year by grazing. And not every farmer has cattle or livestock, which is a shame, because that's really where we lost that touch with touch with nature. Because with my livestock, I'm on that ground every day, and so are they. So the more you see it, the more you take care of it. As regular farmers, 3 months and then they don't look at that land again for quite a while. So outcomes, definitely utilizing my plants better, carbon and plants utilizing, but also dual incomes. Disease drops, I've seen those incomes or those results, outlooks, because my animals are healthier now, and so is my soil as far as disease. Outcomes, I'm really excited about teaching other farmers and our communities about this, because as a farmer, guess what? I used to not get paid what I want for my crop. I was always whatever they give me at the elevator. But the more you do this, the more you realize that, hey, people are coming to you. 7 Sundays, they came to me. And all of a sudden, I get to say what I want for my product. And I really think you get paid for a better product. Shouldn't be bushel, shouldn't be quantity, it should be quality. And so I hope that's one of the best outcomes still yet to come for quality. And as farmers, we need to switch back outcome. I hope we start viewing ourselves as caretakers more than just farmers.
Yeah, someone in the chat put, I like land stewards. We like to use that language as well. So that's great. Thanks, Tom. Mark, what about you? What are you seeing as outcomes, exciting outcomes from your work?
Yeah, well, I'm lucky I get to work with a lot of farmers who are experienced these practices, who've been doing it long term. And I get to work with a lot of farmers who are just getting started. And, there's two things that always jump out at me when I'm working with somebody who's just getting started. The first thing is their excitement when they go out into their field after a year of cover crops and they see 10 times more earthworms than they saw the year before. It's one of the most noticeable things when we walk out there and we take the most important tool, which is a shovel, so we can see what's actually going on out there. And it's always, every time I get excited when they're excited about how many worms they see. And then the other thing is infiltration. When we start working with somebody and we go out and we do infiltration tests and we stand there for an hour and that water doesn't move, and then we come back a year, 2 years later after some cover crops and reduced till, and we see that water move through that little tube much faster in minutes, under 15 minutes almost every time, and or less. They see that immediate change and they get excited. And so it's outcomes like that on the soil health side. And I just want to make sure I throw this out there. It's a selfless plug, but for those who want to see outcomes firsthand, July 29th and 30th, we're going to be hosting our soil health school at Don and Grant Breitkreitz Farm. They're the inaugural Leopold winners here in Minnesota, and they've been doing soil health for a long time. They're leaders in the soil health world. Come see it for yourself. Come learn from them. See what they've done. See what they've turned around. It's amazing what they've done in their farm. And a little plug here. They're using InSoil on some fields. Come see what the product does. See the impact that it has. See how it builds life in the soil, and coupling it with the soil health practices. We're all going to learn together, and we've got some great presenters. Check us out on our website. You can go look at the information up for yourself on the school, but just put that plug out there. You want to see outcomes, come see it. That's what we like to push, is seeing is believing.
Thanks, Mark. And Grant, I know Grant and Don are on here. Do y'all want to share a little bit about your experience in the coalition, working with us, anything y'all are interested in?
Sure. So the coalition was something that Dawn and I watched form and happen in South Dakota. And so Dawn and I were steering committee members of bringing the coalition here to Minnesota. And I'm so happy to say that, you know, we hit 1,000 members before the state we copied did. So it was pretty neat that we got to that point so fast. Remarkable, in fact, to get to that point. But I guess I'll just keep it real simple. The biggest outcome for us in following the principles that Mark went through is it made farming fun again. It was, we were to the point where we were going to quit. And once we turned the soils around, it's just amazing how much more fun it got to be. And like Tom said, the observations we're seeing on the farm, just all the wildlife that came back and profitability that came back. So I think I'll just keep it at that.
I mean, this picture shows the below the ground results, but some of the amazing above the ground is just all the wildlife and the life in itself, the difference in plant species and in the pastures and the different insects and wildlife that have come back to our farm. When somebody said, if you build it, they will come, they were right on.
Great, thank you guys. All right, we'll do one more question, then we'll kind of turn it over to what's in the chat. So if anyone wants to throw anything else in there, please do. I'm curious, how are the priorities of the coalition evolving as this community builds? Y'all have done an amazing job, and as Tucker said, you know, we look up to you all in the educational community that you've built. I know I talked to so many farmers around the country about what y'all are doing as an example. And so as you're building this and as you're kind of developing the growth, how are the priorities evolving? Mark, do you want to answer that question?
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's easy. We're farmer driven. So the priorities evolve as we bring in new members, new insight, as the network learns and develops practices on their farm. You know, that's what drives the priorities. And so we find folks who join the network with different expertises, and that's really what takes us down the path we're on, is being farmer driven, listening to what the farmers' needs are and wants are, and working on those priorities.
Jolene, do you have anything to add?
No, that's exactly. I think the key is, you know, just like with farming, just like with anything, just like with your health, everything we do in life, flexible, be adaptable, you know, be curious. You know, I mean, there's lots of good ideas at certain times, and pursue those and go after it, but also be willing to be like, okay, what is really working, what's not working, and how do we adjust? And I think that the Soil Health Coalition does a really good job with that. And I think that's one of the keys to success.
Great. So we have a couple of questions in the chat. I'm going to start with Ian's. He's got a project with the VFW National Home in Michigan, looking to transform their farm back into something that is being managed by the veteran community like it used to be. They want to bring cattle on the property, and he's giving them a sort of roadmap to that. So 280 tillable acres, currently fully conventional, 3 years of soy, compacted and largely dead. Tom, maybe you want to answer this question. What's a realistic timeline, and how would you get started to rehabilitate the soil and establish perennial forage?
Well, when in doubt, I plant something, put it that way. So many people get caught up on what you're planting, but I think that diversity in what you plant is super key. That's, you know, I was corn fed, now I'm grass finished, and that literally I always thought there's a secret recipe. Diversity is so key. It doesn't matter if it's livestock, human, food, whatever. So when in doubt, plant something. Another is to start looking at how you're going to hold them in there, because now you're dealing with cattle, you have liability. You know, it's the fencing, or maybe even collar fencing. Many different options there, but you have to be cautious It's great to have them on there. You don't want to overload it right away. I always kind of think that the ground has to get, the soil life has to relearn how to work because it's been abused for 250 years. So I like to take it slow at the beginning and take steps with everything you do. I think you have 280 acres, start with a 80 first, or even smaller, depending on what you have at your disposal, and just grow it and take steps and keep on getting bigger and bigger and bigger every year. But as you're doing that, you're learning what's happening, because I can say what I'm doing, but this is a different beast. This is a different area. This is a different environment, climate. You literally have to take everything we say with a grain of salt and put it into your own world. That's your context. So I hope that helps a little bit.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. And Ian, I also am based out of Michigan. I'd love to connect with you, and we can chat cattle and diversity. Francis has got a question. Can Tom replace glyphosate with a different herbicide to reduce damage to the soil microbiome?
Absolutely. That's why I showed those soybeans, because on the conventional side, the no-till side, yes, I do use Roundup, but instead of using 1 quart per acre, a full rate, I'm cutting that down 60%. So that's my first step. And I have, like I said, that ground has to relearn how to work with stuff. And so it's been addicted. It's been abused. Hard thing to do is to take a drug addict and just drop them cold turkey. You need to do it gradually. And so that's kind of what I'm doing. I've seen it with my cattle being addicted to corn. Literally, now I can throw corn out there and they don't even eat it. They'll walk right by it because they want plants first. 15 years ago, tell you what, they would gorge themselves on that corn when I first started doing this. So we need to relearn that addiction. And I think the soil is that. And just with Roundup, it's an easy button. And that's why I jumped to organic, because, disturbance. So many people think it's just tillage, chemicals, fine. Well, a guy told me once that, I asked what's worse, and the guy told me what goes deeper. And that's absolutely chemical. And we've been doing tillage. You can look at mankind. We've been doing tillage for 6,000 years, intensely for the last 50, 100. We've been doing chemical a whole lot shorter. And I see our health, I see human health declining so much faster. So yes, I'm absolutely trying to cut back on everything. But guess what, guys? I'm human. I make mistakes just like everyone else. We have this evil in us that think we can destroy anything. And so with every bad thing, I make sure I do a good thing to replace it. And if I can do 2 good things to replace that one bad thing, it's a start. I hope that answers.
Yeah, that's great, Tom. Tucker's wondering what solutions are developing in Minnesota around food distribution. Do farmers have the access to consumers they need, and is consumer demand high enough? Mark, Jolene, who wants to take this one first?
I can throw some thoughts out there and feel free to add anybody, but it's exciting. We're seeing a lot of demand and interest and supplies, and folks like 7 Sundays, Little Bucks, Simple Meals coming together. They are the market for farmers to grow alternative crops, and that's wonderful. And they're marketing and they're creating healthy products, and we're seeing consumers turning to those healthier products. So there's definitely demand increasing. I don't think we're there yet. We still have a long way to go. And in Minnesota, we're lucky. We have an outstanding farmers market network. We have great support from MDA, from the Ag Water Quality Program, the Soil Health Coalition, right? Lots of farmer interest, and it's moving forward, and it is exciting. But I think we have a long way to go, and I think we need to see a few more companies involved in creating products that call for different crops besides corn and soybean and coming up with just some more creativity. We are attending a food systems, basically a conference for food companies coming up, where we're going to get a chance to talk a lot about that. We have hosted events on farms here, Tom's farm, Grant and Don's farm, many others from food companies to come learn. And so we're also working on putting a list together, or a map, if you will, of for consumers where they can find regenerative products here in Minnesota. And now we're partnering with a company that's basically like the Amazon for regenerative foods, right? Where you'll be able to go online, search these farms, and there'll be more information coming out soon through our newsletter, which is another benefit of being a member. And we're hoping to continue to help drive that and push it, but I think we have a long way to go.
Jolene, anything to add?
Again, agree with Mark. I think that, trying to work the food system is huge, and there's a lot of barriers in the food system, but I mean, it's fun to see the progress, and it's one of those things that you feel like you take a half step forward and sometimes it's 5 steps back. But I think the best we can do is just continue to form these relationships and advocate and educate people and keep moving forward. But it does sometimes feel like we have a really long ways to go with that. We also, part of my job here in the Guard is we're partnering with some nonprofits, including the Soil Health Coalition, Basil's Harvest, to look at a Midwest food system chain from farm to National Guard, because National Guard units exist in every state around the whole state. And if we could figure out ways to do supply chain, that supply chain would also be then replicable to schools, communities, so on and so forth. And so that is a grant that we've been working on for now about 1.5 years, 2 years, with a 5 to 7 year kind of plan of how we can do some pilots with some National Guard armories here in Minnesota, in Illinois, and then we're trying to pull in Iowa and Wisconsin as well. So that is an ongoing project that feels very huge and overwhelming, but of course it's important, and we just got to keep fighting the good fight. But it really is a policy, it's a systems problem, and it also requires a lot of policy change. So we need all the people that are fighting this fight to continue to fight the fight in all levels.
Thank you, Jolene. Great. Well, we are coming to the hour here. Just going to throw up our upcoming events. Again, Mark mentioned the Soil Health School in July, so please reach out to him for more information on that. We have a webinar next week. It's been moved, so it was it's not next week, it's the week after. It was going to be next week. It's now going to be on the 15th at 8 p.m. Eastern. And this is doing a trial review for sweet corn nitrogen with the University of Hawaii, reducing nitrogen there. We have an info session next Friday, and please stay in touch with us. I just want to express gratitude for all of you for being here, for Mark and Jolene and Tom for participating and being partners with us, Grant and Don, and all the farmers that are on the call. We couldn't do this without you guys. So we appreciate you being here and sharing your stories and just continuing the network of education so we can all support each other. If anyone needs anything, please reach out to us. You can send us an email at info. We can connect you with the coalition and vice versa. Anything you need, please don't hesitate. Yes, and Don put something in the chat for you, Ian, so we'll be in touch with you. Any last words from anyone? And then, have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Jillian. See you guys later.
God bless.